Welcome to our February 2014 series of games taken at the Worcester Manaleak store. This is brought to you by Netrunners.co.uk. We're going to bring you the 4 rounds of Swiss that we had in the February tournament. Not my best tournament, it has to be said, and like last time it went swimmingly well. This one not so much. In fact, it was probably more a case of sink. However, I will do my very best not to sound too depressed or despondent as these games continue. There were some decks I was trying out with a view for the upcoming store championship, which will be taking place in Worcester in March the 8th, as well as regionals and the Kronos tour, obviously, which is coming up in a month or so as well. So this has seemed like the appropriate time to test and trial and get deck space sorted out. So you can see myself here on the right playing Weyland, and then Stuart on the left playing Kit. As you can see from my hand, it's not particularly ideal. There's certainly a few agendas in there, early scorched, and some ice as my second piece of ice that I was probably after. So I'm going to install, and Beanstalk. So a pretty good opening, it has to be said. Exactly the kind of thing you want to see, apart from the fact that the ice is far from ideal. So he will sure gamble, first click. Second click he's going to run through on HQ, which I will res as I've got a handful of agendas, and he'll hit the Enigma. So a little mini face check, and he'll lose his third click. Again, not particularly what you really want to see facing off against Kit though. So he'll put down his professional contacts and pass the turn over. And lo and behold, yes, you're right, you see another Enigma in hand there. Joy. Code gates against Kit. Not really the ideal. Certainly not as the innermost piece of ice anyway. If you want your code gates, you kind of want them mid-game and put them on the edge. So I'm going to, envisaging the likelihood of Kit being able to quickly find a code gate breaker, I'm going to score out the hostile takeover from hand and just lower the agenda density I've got. This is a deck that only runs 9 agendas, so there's 4 3-pointers in the deck. So I think I've drawn a third of my agendas up just to kind of put this in context. It's a running theme of today's tournaments. So I'll install, set the remote server. It looks like I'm installing the Project Atlas there, and Beanstalk. Trying to keep my money up as best I can. All the Weyland burst. So first click, Stuart's going to diesel. Debating whether to run on the remote server, which he will do. The pointed finger. And have another Enigma. Oh, it's nice to have some symmetry going on, some uniformity, but sadly, again, not particularly what I want to see against Kit, though. So far, so good, it has to be said. Hopefully, if this continues, then the code gates will keep Kit out forever. I don't think that's going to happen somehow. So, again, he also lost the click, and is discarding a card. So, I will triple advance and score. Again, I didn't really feel like I had sufficient time to actually overscore the Project Atlas at this stage. It's ideal, but at the same time, with all 3 code gates out, you've got to assume the Kit deck has a fair amount of tutoring and has the means to break into my code gate servers very quickly. As it actually happens, that wasn't necessarily the case, and he's drawing up a lot of stuff that he probably doesn't need, a lot of tinkerings and of Dinosaurus there, so again expecting the Yogg to come on, but as it stands, still no code gate breaker. And so I'm 3 points to the good, so I can't complain, it's a good start. Discarding a tinkering, which obviously he doesn't need currently, as everything's a code gate anyway. So now it's a question of how much actually can I get away with this. So I'm going to install, res, and draw to a Jackson. And then last click, play a hedge fund. So it's going well, has to be said. So far so good. I'm seeing the cards I need. Flatline seems to be off the table. I've only got the one scorched in hand. I've got no means to actually get it out as it stands, other than drawing up the Jackson. But at the same time, I'm 3 points up, and he has a minimal rig, or no rig at all. Certainly no code gate breaker, which is the key one. As soon as the Kogate Breaker comes out, of course, it's a whole other ball game. Or card game, as the case may be. I think we were just discussing how much money he actually had there. And as always, obviously I'm right. Far be it for me to be wrong. We'll watch it back and probably find out that actually I was wrong. But, so he'll play Dirty Laundry and Archives for his final click. And take some money. Nothing in Archives to see yet. So I've got a Chimera in hand there, it looks like. I don't think I've got another agenda yet. I'm going to draw 2 Jackson, first click, and there's the Project Atlas. So again, now I really face the problem of there's no point installing in front of an Enigma. As soon as he has the Kogate Breaker, that becomes an incredibly bad play, because he can break through the first piece of ice and the second piece of ice for free. Dinosaurus or Yogosaurus, it will be at 5 strength, and that pretty much breaks almost all of my ice, full stop. I do have Hadrian's Walls in the deck. Other than that, that's all she wrote. So restructure, second click, and third click, Beanstalk. So I guess I'm just saving up the pennies ready for hopefully installing and scoring another agenda. First click he'll draw, second click he'll draw, so using professional contacts. Third click he'll do the same, and he'll play a Plascrete. Final click. So I'm trying to make himself safe from the Scorch. The deck is also running punitive counter-strikes, running 2 punitive and 2 neural EMPs. It's very much a damage deck. It's a flatline deck, though at the moment I'm not seeing any of the pieces to the puzzle of it. And again, it becomes the quandary of, do you overscore the Project Atlas when you're actually in quite a strong position on the agenda score front? At this point I think I'm far more tempted to try and score out the agendas, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to install, and install. So there goes the Project Atlas with 2 pieces of ice. So even if he finds the Yogg, it means that I can still fend him off. That's the idea. He's got the test run in hand there by the looks of it, which is probably what he's been hunting desperately for. Yeah, so there we go, third click test run. Going to find the Yogg and installing it onto Dinosaurus. So all my Enigmas absolutely pointless now. It was always going to happen. Though to be fair, they have managed to gain me 3 clicks effectively, so I can't complain too much. But economically, I'm in a very solid position. 20 credits, so it's all good. 3 points up. He's got 1 click left, he's going to run on the remote. So I'll res the Chimera. Doesn't really matter what it goes in at because it gains Code Gate. So I think I say, Sentry, whatever. So he breaks with Yogg for free. But obviously the important thing is so that this then enables me to res the lower piece of ice, which is an Ice Wall, which will knock him out. For the time being, anyway. But that's all I need. Is discarding an Atman. The Chimera gets de-resed and mandatory draw. But I will just spend 3 and score the Project Atlas, taking me to 5 points. So no overscoring again. At this point, again, I'm feeling pretty confident of the opportunity I have to score out the game. I'm on 5-0. Life is good. Looks like he's drawn the so he's drawn a modded. So he's modded in the Yogg back onto the Dinosaurus after it going back on top of R&D. He's going to run R&D, which is obviously free for him. Sees nothing. And then for the final click, he's having a ponder, he's going to professional contacts. So, and you draw aggressively here for the agenda. Don't really want to see a 3-pointer here at this stage, I must be honest. I'd much rather score out another Atlas. There are 3 in the deck, but chances of me doing so slim. So you can see from my hand I've got a punitive, a scorched, I've got a couple of pieces of ice, I've got a snare. Nothing that's going to keep him out permanently, and at the same time I need to lock down R&D. As I say, this deck runs 4 3-pointers, I cannot leave R&D wide open. It just gets punished so much. So first click he's going to have a look. He'll hit the shadow, which he'll break with the Yogg, which is fine. And then second click he'll hit the wall of static. Again, just trying to keep my eyes too deep. I'm not too worried about the enigmas at this stage. They would have been far more useful on top, but as it is, they are underneath. I mean, the chances of the double scorched here is pretty slim anyway. Obviously, one snare's already gone into my hand. He's got the plascrete down and he's using professional contacts, which isn't great. So he's got the R&D interface there. Third click. Getting ready for an assault on R&D, which this deck is incredibly vulnerable for. In many respects, it's a win hard or lose hard deck, and like I say, the flat line is increasingly going off the table, even with a scorched and the cards I need to be able to do that. Obviously, I haven't seen the sea source yet. Punitive can potentially burn through the plascrete, although I really want to see them in doubles. But still, 10 minutes in and we're 5-1 up. I'm 5-0 up, so I'm not feeling hugely rushed at this stage. So I'll just take some money. I think I'm building up for the Hadrians. Try and find a way of securing a remote. He's going to tinkering the wall of static, and then he's going to run R&D. So he's going to see 2 cards. So he'll break for free. Doesn't see anything on the top, and sees the General on the second, so it's a hostile takeover, so it's now 5-1. He's going to run the Jackson, which again he'll break for free. I'm going to actually use the Jackson, I think shuffle back in some economy cards. Since most of them have gone now, it seems to be sensible to put some of them back in the deck, especially because I'm not exactly loaded with cash at the moment. So I'm putting in 2 beanstalks and a hedge fund, I believe. And also probably just to decrease agenda density in R&D as well, now that it's vulnerable. The problem I've got is that it's protecting a remote and R&D is very difficult to do. This is where you want to see fast advance, probably more than anything else. This is where you want to see the Astra script. But alas, it's Weyland, so not the case. We live and learn. So mandatory draw, seeing another Hadrian, so that's 2 Hadrians in hand now, not a lot of money. So we'll restructure. Should alleviate that situation a little bit, but still only enough money to res 1. It's just a question of where to put it now.
Yeah, it's an odd timing.
So we'll install it on top of R&D.
Yeah, it's fine. An odd timing one I wasn't certain of.
The problem obviously is that, and again I can see in his hand, he has an Escher in hand. HQ being wide open at the moment, which causes a huge vulnerability problem. If he gets the Escher run successful, then suddenly everything's vulnerable, and all my security is gone away. So he'll run HQ and see a punitive counter strike, which we'll have a quick look at.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's just so that, yeah, so it's good to know what's been accessed.
Is it place 5?
Yes.
That was his first click. Again, yeah, he's got the Escher there, you can see. He's also got a data sucker, which you probably wanted to install first. Still a V. Draws another Escher in hand there by the looks of it. He's got 1 click left. So the problem with the Yogosaurus is that it's a very economic card now. It's breaking everything for free for fun on the outside, and makes things very challenging for me. And now he's got the data sucker down as well. Potentially that's more ice that he can bring into range of it. So he will Escher for his last click. So the run is successful. So he gets to shuffle around some ice. So those enigmas that kind of wish I'd trashed now at this point. I think Leslie, again, note to self, don't leave code gates on the table when you're playing against kit, because all of a sudden it becomes a real problem. So there we have it. Enigma's R&D looking vulnerable, to say the least. So he moves the Hadrians over to the remote. I'm just having a quick check. So it's a Hadrians and a Chimera there on the remote. And suddenly the remote's looking okay, but the problem is he's now got data sucker tokens. And I still haven't seen the agenda I need. HQ is vulnerable, so I don't want to particularly draw up hugely with it. I've got another Hadrian's there installed in front of Ice Wall.
I'll do the archives then.
Trashing the Enigma. And we're going to install into the remote, I think that's a Jackson Howard to be truthful, then hedge fund. So, money, again, economy is looking good. The Escher has undoubtedly set me back, because suddenly those pieces of ice are not terrific. So he's going to put the Atman in at 0. Second click he'll professional contacts, and third click as well. Last click he'll run the remote. And suddenly that Chimera is a real problem, because the Atman absolutely destroys it. So again, another vulnerability here. The outer piece of ice is vulnerable. The inner piece of ice is vulnerable to the Atman at 0. And all his central runs are giving him data sucker tokens, which will make my Hadrian's walls vulnerable. And given that I'm having to pay 10 for those, that's not ideal either. Suddenly, everything is very much achievable. And obviously the Hadrians are on the outside, so that's a real problem. So I kind of wish the Hadrians were on the inside here. I've only got 2 in the deck, they're both out already. The only real late game ice that I have to offer within the deck. So I've got the agenda, I think it's a government contract. And there's no way I'm going to risk a 3-pointer at this stage. Even though he's seen the punitive with the Plascrete down and his hand size pretty much staying at 5, it's a real problem. So I'm going to draw. Got a beanstalk there as well. Economy not the problem at the moment. It's all about where on earth am I going to score these agendas, and at the same time, how on earth am I going to secure R&D? Because I haven't seen any other ice. So I'm going to advance the Hadrian's Wall twice. The idea being to take it out of Data Sucker Yogosaurus range. So it'll come in now at strength 9 with 2 subroutines, which should be relatively ungettable. So he'll tinkering the ice wall, first click. Second click he's going to run through on R&D. I don't want to res the Hadrian's Wall here, and I think this is probably one of my key errors of the game. I should have resed the government contract scored. I should have resed the Hadrians there, if for no other reason than to stop him from getting data sucker tokens. It's the data sucker tokens that cause the real lasting problems in this match, and I think had I kept him out there, could have been a very different story. But now we're on 4 points to 5 points, and the game's looking very different. Very different indeed. And now, yeah, that Hadrian doesn't block him out anyway, because he's got 2 data sucker tokens, and obviously Yogg at 5. Equally, the Atman at 0 pretty much takes care of any other ice. So we've got problems. There's no denying it. We have problems. Now at this point, do I put the 3-pointer in an advance, knowing full well that he could run on it first click, run twice on archives, get the data sucker tokens he needs, and then last click, run the remote again, and he could score the agenda. This is kind of the problem where I think we begin to overanalyze the situation, and you begin to think to yourself, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? He can get in, but just because he can get in doesn't mean that he will get in. I've got the money to res the Hadrians, res the Chimera, but not to score out the three-pointer. So that's a real problem. I've got the Project Atlas in hand there as well, so that could make things easier. So I'm going to discard the three-pointer and keep my Project Atlas in hand. So again, that's all the only agendas I need, which is good. I think I'm debating here, is Scorched actually going to happen? Probably not. I'm going to discard a Snare and shuffle that back into R&D when I get a chance. Get rid of the Punitive, because at this point on 4 points, if he scores another three-pointer, it's game over anyway, so the Punitive loses its efficiency. Punitives didn't really do great work in this tournament, I have to say. I haven't been overly impressed with how it performs in real terms. Obviously the idea is just to do a stupid amount of meat and net damage so that you burn through the Plascretes for the win, but it just didn't ever seem to quite work out in practice. In order to get the value out of Punitive Counter-Strike, you need to be running 3-point agendas. And the problem with 3-point agendas is that runners score them. And that's a real issue, because the runner scoring a 3-point agenda changes the whole dynamic of the game. It really does. So he will have a look at archives, at which point I'll use Jackson to get rid of the 3-pointer that I put in there. And probably put the snare back in as well. And the other Jackson I think I might be putting in. Giving some thought as to... No, I'm going to put in the Enigma, because again I'm really low on ice. If I can just get one more piece of ice on that outer remote, absolutely fine. But as it is, I can't, until I see that last piece of ice to put on the remote, I can't put anything in it, because I can't score it. It's going to get stolen. Or at least I think it will get stolen. So he will run through my hand. See a Scorched Earth. Getting data suckers as he goes, and again that causes... This is what's causing the problem now. Even the Hadrian's double advance isn't going to keep him out as the outermost piece of ice. I need something in front of it, so he installs another R&D interface, taking him up to 2. And he's going to draw again. So I've seen a piece of ice, that's good. Means I can keep him out of that remote server. Now it's a money problem. Now it's the situation of, am I actually going to have enough money to be able to install into this remote and keep him out at the same time? I've got to install on top of that remote, which will cost me 2 credits. I've got then 10 credits to spend for the Hadrians. So, potentially, yes, it will keep him out, but it depends. I'm not sure what that extra piece of ice is that I've rezzed there. I think it's another wall of static, so I won't have the money to keep him out. So it's, do you wait? Do you go for it? Do you hope that they've got no means of getting in? How do you play it? At this stage, I know we can't break the Hadrians, so I'm going to go for it. I've got the restructure, so I've got the money I need now. I've got the 3 pieces of ice. I've got the Hadrian's wall is now less of an issue. Just going to test run first click. Not a good start for me. It has to be said. Now he's going to bring out a Fem. Oh, he's going to Fem the Hadrians. Great. So, yeah, there goes that plan already. And I know it. I know that now is not going to happen, and that's not going to work. The game-winning agenda is not going to come off there. So he's going to run. At which point, I believe at this point, I just kind of consider there's not really a great deal of need for me to res these pieces of ice, because I can't keep him out regardless. It's only going to cost him 2 to get through the Hadrian's Wall, but the Fem will go away at the end of the turn. That's not inconsiderable. I can afford to give up the Project Atlas. It will only take him to 6 points. The game's still on the balance, still match point for both of us in many respects. I can afford to give up the agenda because the Fem's going away. It's a short-term problem rather than a long-term problem. And if I res all these pieces of ice, all I'm going to do is give him additional information to be able to make that remote less secure. So I'm not going to do any resing, and ask him if he wants to access. At which point he ums and ahs. Be nice if it was a snare in there, huh? It's again, I'm just weighing up the likelihood here of me being able to score the final agenda, because R&D is vulnerable. I'm not going to be able to have the money to res the Hadrians on R&D and res the Hadrians on the remote. It's kind of one or the other, and again, this deck is running for 3-pointers, which is a real problem. So he scores the accesses and scores the Project Atlas, taking him to his 6 points. So it's now going to scavenge the Fem, and he's going to retarget it to the ice wall, which is interesting because he doesn't really need to do that. I was quite glad at that point, thinking, oh thank goodness, that means I can actually got a Hadrian's now to score behind. Now he's going to diesel last click. Again, he's playing very cautiously. He clearly doesn't want to be scorched. I'm not sure anyone who does, but it does mean, it again makes things a little bit more challenging. I've got the 2 scorches in hand, but no sea source. So I draw, see an agenda. So it's a real difficult situation here. He could have a tinkering in hand. I know he's still got 1 left at least in his deck. Can't break through the Hadrians, but I've got to res both pieces of ice to keep him out. It's just the question of, do I install advance? Can I keep him out? Will he just Escher me to death? There's lots of ways for him to get into these remotes. He could scavenge the Fem for more than anything else. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to install another piece of ice on the remote, which I think again was probably a mistake here. I think I should have gone balls to the wall and tried to score out the agenda. I don't think I gained anything here by slowing down my play. But again, he could have so many answers potentially. He could re-scavenge the Fem. He could tinkering a piece of ice. He could Escher. There's a multitude of things that he can do, and at the same time he can still just R&D lock me. All he needs is 1 more agenda point, and he can pretty much get through R&D. And he's going to see 3 cards minimum. It looks like he's got the other R&D interface in hand there, so he could be seeing as many as 4, at which point it's game over really, isn't it, let's be honest. So he'll install the R&D interface first click. Second click he will run R&D. I'll have to res the Hadrians because I haven't really got a choice. Seeing 4 cards is almost certainly going to be game over. So he will bump the strength up and break with Yogg. He can bypass the ice wall, and he sees 4 cards. Doesn't see the win. So minor miracle there. A minor miracle. But now I've got economic problems. Now my problem is I shouldn't have rested the Hadrians on R&D. I should have left it, because either way he was going to get through and win it, even if there was an agenda in there. And so I'm now in a situation where I can't afford to protect the remote from him either and score an agenda. So again, I should have left the Hadrians unresed and just prayed and hoped that he didn't see any agendas, as he didn't. It was, far stronger to just leave the Hadrians unresed, have a real chance there to score out the agenda that I needed. I think I've realised it now. I got too trigger happy with the resing there. Running on 6, maybe 7 credits. Almost all my economy is gone now. And we're both on match point. He's got 3 R&D interfaces installed. Free reign at R&D itself. There's no way I'm going to hit the flat line here. Mainly because, again, I don't have the money or the sea source. And so I kind of have to buy my time again, which I probably shouldn't have done. I'm figuring, well, I know the top 3 cards aren't agendas, so I might as well wait. He's going to run on HQ. Sees a Scorched Earth, so he didn't pull my 3-pointer. I'm back up to 13 credits now, which is enough to keep him out, but I've got to res 2 pieces of ice. It won't be enough to score the agenda out, so he's going to draw up with professional contacts, and he's going to mod it in another Plascrete. He's obviously thinking I'm going for the flat line here, which I'm absolutely not. But the flat line's certainly off the table now. Not that it was ever particularly on it. So this last agenda. Been stuck on 5 agenda points now for the best part of 20 minutes. And cannot find a way of scoring out this last agenda. Because I don't have the money now. Ice, no longer a problem. Money's the problem. And almost all my economy cards have gone into archives. And I've got to lock down R&D. So that becomes first priority. Because it's a 3-pointer in my hand, so all I could do is install advance. So he's going to get he's going to get another turn. He's going to be able to run at R&D, and I would suggest that the law of averages, he is almost certainly going to see the agenda he needs there if I can't keep him out. But with an admin at 0, 4 or 5 data sucker tokens, a Fem, and a Yogosaurus, it ain't looking great. He's going to scavenge the Fem. He's going to move it onto my Hadrian's Wall. Great. So I know now this is over, pretty much. That really was the kiss of death. He's going to run R&D, second click. I'll res the ice wall because I haven't got much of a choice. So at least I'm going to make him pay for it. So again, he'll pay the 2 to bypass. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the agenda. There's the game. And again, I just wasn't able to score out the last agenda point. Close in many respects, back and forth certainly, but frustrating from my perspective. It's being stuck on 5 points for the whole game. Not a lot of fun, and not a great start to the tournament. When we move on to the second game, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit of better luck there. Again, I was explaining here to my plan of advancing the Hadrians. Didn't work out. Couldn't find the remote to score out the agenda. Kit is very strong like that. So we move on to game 2 of round 1.